Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CIC Community Conversations. My name is Andrew Gonzalez, Assistant Director here at the Center for Internships and Community Engagement. I'm joined, as always, by the awesome Ashley Jones, our Partnerships Coordinator. And we're here every week to tell you more about how to pursue academic internships here at Cal State Fullerton. And while I'm sure there's a lot of questions that exist in the COVID climate, if you will, our effort, this whole process is intended to connect you with employers, folks, individuals, companies, supervisors, you name it, that have committed themselves to provide training, to provide mentorship to our students across all different departments and colleges. And we have a lot of partners to choose from. So we're absolutely excited to feature them here for you every Wednesday at 2 p.m. We'll be here again next Wednesday to finish off our July series with Stand Up for Kids. But today we have one of our longtime partners here that typically do a lot of academic internships for us. And Ashley, tell us a little bit about Kid Sports News Network, because we've been working with them for some time, right?
We have, yeah. So today we are very excited to have our great partner, Kids Sports News Network, and we've got Micah Giles here ready to tell us all about, again, like how we've switched all of our internships over to virtual opportunities, everything that they have to offer there. But I think start off a little bit about some of the history of Kids Sport News Network. So Micah, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can start off telling us a bit about the history of the organization and kind of where you're at now.
Okay. First of all, let me just thank you guys for having us on. And this is really an interesting time for us in this landscape of learning how to operate and function in a virtual world. Kids Sports News Network, we have been around now about 22 years. We lovingly refer to ourselves as the ESPN for youth sports. And how we got started was really born out of a love for children in sports as parents. Simply put, it was a group of parents culminating on the soccer field every Saturday out there back then with our high cameras capturing all that footage of our kids, making those goals. And it was kind of discovered that 20 years from now, we wouldn't know why that footage was taken because the story wasn't told, why that particular footage was so valuable. So that's really how KSNN was born. Back in the day, when we first started doing KSNN, we had to kind of figure out what does this look like, because the culture in the world of youth sports was nothing like it was today. And we actually had our kind of what we call our two longtime alumni anchors, Brian Blakely and Amy Storm. And as a result of their passion and their understanding the vision and being able to connect to the vision we had, they actually were our first spotlight anchors for the network. As a matter of fact, there was an article that was done with them, I want to say back around in 2005, that kind of featured our first premiere into the market. From there and from that experience, we knew we were onto something, and we knew, okay, we're pioneering new territory, but let's just be true to who we are. We're families, parents, brothers, sisters, just about anybody that was anybody knew somebody that was playing youth sports or had grown up in youth sports. And we made the commitment at that time, let's do something a little bit different. Let's not just capture footage. Let's document the story. Let's memorialize this special period, not only in the families' lives, but in particular with those youth athletes. Because the beautiful part about what we do, when we're covering an 8-year-old baseball athlete, basketball, or whatever, we have no idea who that athlete is going to yield into. As a matter of fact, we had the honor of covering LeBron James before he became LeBron.
Wow.
Before he became King James. Yeah, he was still, at very beginnings in high school, and he was traveling out here to Poly Pavilion for a tournament, and no one had any idea that he would be the LeBron James. So that's when we knew this is something special, and it took a life of its own. So our mission, in summary, as a company, has evolved into being a youth sports network that is dedicated to the examination of the culture of youth sports. Not just the athletes, but the coaches, the families, sometimes even the teachers, because a lot of your star athletes, their greatest mentors were people that aren't always directly connected to youth sports. We approach it from a global perspective. We deal with special needs athletes. We deal with what we call the underrepresented youth sports market, which has a draw now ever since the women's national soccer team won the World Cup. That has created or cultivated a large spotlight on how female athletes have been underrepresented. So it's just really an exciting journey for us. And we enjoy it. We're passionate about it. And probably one of the greatest gifts that we're able to do is to share that experience with up and coming students that are trying to figure out, where's my niche? How do I fit into all of this? So that's a little bit about who we are. Now, I'd like to just share, though, with today's new norm in the world of living in the COVID-19, is interesting because we find ourselves having evolved or having pivoted into figuring out a way to still service that market, but do it a little bit differently. So for us, we've learned and we've adapted to the technology, to the softwares, to the tools that are available, functions like Asana, Airtable, Zoom, all of the software and the virtual teleconferencing softwares that are out there. We feel like we've adjusted pretty well. It's not something that is totally new to us because we're used to dealing with crew members from all over Southern California as well as other parts of the United States. But that's where we find ourselves today, and we feel like we have made that adjustment, that transition very well. And it's an exciting time for our I'll say our mentees or our students, because they're able to witness firsthand really what it takes for an industry or for a company within the industry that's had to pivot on a dime and still keep, their business model intact.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. You said a lot of buzzwords that got me excited. I'm a huge fan of the U.S. women's soccer team personally, so I'm excited to see everything about women in sports and everything like that gets me very excited. So, and I'm sure that excites a lot of other people too who are in the field, who are learning about what their career goals are and what Kids Sport News Network stands for, and the mission that you just talked about, I think is a great opportunity for talking about those students who are looking for internship opportunities. We've had so many with in-person internships in the past. Of course, we've had to transition and pivot, like you had said before. So can you tell us a little bit more about the internship opportunities that you have had for students, what you continue to have, and maybe some things in the future that students can take part in?
Certainly. Our internship opportunities typically fall under the umbrella of three departments within the network. Our production department, our marketing department, and our administrative department. And up under the umbrella of administrative, usually we get accounting students that are looking to get that real world experience. What we've done in the past, I'll start with production, has covered the gamut from students that are interested in becoming professional videographers, editors, graphic art students, production assistants. Those are typically the students that really haven't quite figured out where their niche is in the production world, and they kind of want to get a little taste of everything. And those internships tend to work very well because we find that many of the students, once they do a production assistant internship with us, they walk away with much more than they had expected. Sometimes the students will have had other internships in that area and have found that they've been relegated to kind of just being a gopher, for lack of a better word. One of the things we try to do is really give them an opportunity to touch point, different working areas so that they have a better foundation or an understanding of where they may fit in the real world. We've had students that have come on board and intern with us that are interested in directing and producing. We always tell them, now, you sure you want to do that? Because if you ask, we're going to give you the chance to do it. And we've had some pretty fulfilling journeys with some of those students. And then, of course, we've got the opportunities in production that deal with reporting and anchoring. Students that, want to get in front of the camera. One of the things I think that they learn with us regarding those opportunities is the importance and the value in really becoming invested in whatever the project is. You're an artist in some reels, but you're also a human being. And one of the things we're on at KSNN is always harnessing the humanity in any story and in any aspect of youth sports that we're covering. And we enjoy traveling that journey with the students because everybody's humanity is unique to them. But what is so exciting is when you see that humanity come to life and it materialize in something that is unique, their fingerprint, if you will, on a particular project. Now, as it relates to the virtual world, those opportunities have changed because obviously with videography, we can't go out and cover youth sports the way we used to. But we find ourselves doing or transitioning actually very similar to how you guys are. When we are conducting interviews, we are now preparing and just about to launch our new model where despite the fact that we can't go out to the fields, the story still is the story. And the students are learning how we've adjusted and the options when you still have to get the content, learning how to get it in a virtual or on a remote basis using it requires a little bit more from us because we've got to be a bit more creative with how we make that that content engaging. But I think we're doing a good job. And the thing that's really rewarding is that the students are still finding that the learning experience is just as fulfilling. When it comes to editing, that has been kind of an easy transition because, a lot of what we do is adapted to cloud-based technology. So we use TeamViewer a lot, such that we're able to teach in real time, even though the student is not able to come into the studio. Using tools like TeamViewer still allows our producers and our lead editors to interact with the students and actually guide them through touch points in particular projects. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I have to say, I think from a production perspective, we've done a pretty good job of transitioning. With marketing, it's been a little bit more challenging, but I think we've made the cut. Our marketing opportunities, we deal with students that are interested in dabbling and figuring out, what marketing and PR is all about. Market research. You've got some students that are interested more in learning how to assess and analyze the numbers that go around behind marketing. Event planning. Again, not a whole lot of events being planned these days, but it still is an opportunity for students to learn because a lot of companies that are being proactive, they're actually, and a lot of our partners, they're still looking towards the future. And even though, we're not able to execute right now, many of our allies are still needing a number of those services, such that when we get to a different place, things are in place and we're able to execute. And then there's the world of digital marketing. To the opposite side, COVID has obviously magnified the need and the presence of that. And for us as a company, whereas our model was built, when we first started, was built primarily in terms of producing content for television. If you look at the television landscape has changed a lot since COVID-19. We find we're scrutinizing networks, and you see where that network is a little bit hungry for content right now because they're replaying content, and the digital landscape is broadening, and its reach is increasing phenomenally. So for us, that's a good thing because our market, youth athletes, most of them are not engaged in television a whole lot. Their moms and dads are, their grandparents are, but they don't get their content from television. They're digital based. So for us, it's a good time for us to make that transition and start focusing our marketing efforts and our production distribution more towards a digital landscape. And you got to market it to get it out there. Branding opportunities and branding training. Our content, what we do is paid for by sponsors. And those sponsors are oftentimes and most of the time looking for innovative, unique ways to brand themselves in a market that is lucrative to their bottom line, and that brings them to us. So the students are able to learn about the backstory behind how you launch a successful branding campaign, and many sponsorship and advertising are tied to that. Again, dealing with that and training with that in COVID, with students not being able to come in on site, what we find ourselves doing is using those same tools and actually dishing out the different internship opportunities when we've got a team of students on board. We have to just more carefully plan and orchestrate how those particular projects are going to be farmed out so that students, have maximum opportunity to really learn and absorb the process. And then when we talk about admin, typically we're talking about accounting students, and that's a pretty exciting endeavor. And people probably wonder, how can you make accounting exciting? But when you take, a student who are used to accountants being stereotyped to being in front of a cubicle all day long and counting numbers, and you let them know, there's a bigger world. You might ultimately want to become a chief financial officer or a controller. There's much more to the world of accounting. And if your career goals are loftier than just counting numbers for the rest of your life, then let us expose you to how you have to change the way you think. And what we do is we integrate the accounting interns into the process of what we do. Yes, they're going to learn the fundamentals of accounting. One of the things the students really enjoy most is they get a chance to learn QuickBooks in real time. They know of QuickBooks and they're exposed to it, but obviously in a college environment, you can't have a QuickBooks software access for every single student. So they know in theory it's something that they need to have. We give them an opportunity to actually learn it. But even beyond just learning what QuickBooks is about, even more so, they have to understand the importance of, if you're going to evaluate the financial health of a particular customer base, you got to know how that customer makes their money. You got to understand their business model. So what we do with our accounting students, not only are they learning or managing and being exposed to what's happening on the back end, but they also couple that with being exposed to how those numbers come about. If you're looking at budgets and assessing financial statements relative to what it costs us to hire videographers, to hire editors, you need to know why those numbers make sense. So those are the opportunities that we offer. And again, like I said, from being able to come on site to virtual, using the tools and software that we have, we've just transitioned and teach more virtually versus having the students in the studio or in the office.
That's awesome. And, I'm sure those of you that are watching right now, just hearing Micah talk about the entire breadth of development that goes on at Kids Sports News Network. So even if you're not interested specifically in broadcast journalism or production or anything else related to that area, know that they have a lot in business development. Micah and her husband has been doing it for quite some time. They have tremendous expertise. And so, Micah, I want to draw on your expertise on a quick question we got from Alex. And again, if you're watching, feel free to type in your questions in the comments section. Anything that you might want to have to share, we can do that along the way. But Alex, Micah, Alex asked, how can students make the most of their internships, especially when they're remote? So now this is on the other end. Based on the many students you've already supervised, what differentiates between a really good remote student and a student that struggles with this type of environment?
Good question. First of all, Alex, understand that remote or on-site, the key is when you're struggling to ask questions. One of the philosophies we have here at KSNN that works well with our interns is, and they're surprised, our philosophy is, if you're not asking questions and if you're not putting out your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas, you're going to have more of a problem with this than asking too much. I always tell students, you don't know what you don't know. And what I mean by that is when you're merging from the academic world into the real world, the goal is to bridge the two experiences. The real world is going to be more practical based, and your theory foundation that you've gotten academically is going to serve you well. But when you are struggling with a remote virtual environment, most of the students find that the lack of engagement is probably the greatest handicap. I always advise students, be proactive about engaging. And probably the best place to start is if you're in an internship or work environment, start that with whoever is in charge. Typically, that's going to be the greatest source because they can kind of guide you and direct you. One thing I find with students in the virtual environment, most students in the population of, younger millennials coming on down, you're so used to communicating in a digital world. Now that your actual real world environment has been removed due to the COVID, it's like, wow, how do I connect with people? How do I reach out to people? You're not used to being proactive with doing that. So I always advise students, don't be afraid. Don't be inhibited with engaging, asking questions. If you're having a struggle and you don't even know what to ask, start talking about the struggle. That's a good talk point to start getting you to kind of figure out, well, where is this really coming from? Am I missing just being around other students? Am I missing having that stimulation of being on campus and having that direct contact? It can come from sources that you don't know, but you got to start asking the question. So my best advice is don't be inhibited, don't hold back. Start with somebody you trust, which is typically your manager, your supervisor, your professor, whoever, and let them help guide you.
And Micah, with that said, I know you've had experiences with students that have done just that. They've excelled. They've really taken the internship and made it their own. They engaged with you, recognizing that networking was key, that the production quality and the effort they're putting forward is key. Tell us a little about some of your success stories and some of the students that have just gone on to do wonderful things as a result of Kids Sports News Network.
Gosh, where do I begin? I say that mainly because I feel like every student that did not quit is a success story to us. And what I mean by that is when our students come to us, they really have, they're like, I kind of equate it when you're raising children, and you can relate to this, I'm sure, Andrew, with your little ones, when they're just beginning to walk, okay, and they don't realize until they start getting that stride in their walk and like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. Our interns are pretty much that way. So for us, when that student finishes, that was a successful route. Now, we've had some students that have done some pretty amazing things. One of the ones I always love to share with is our very first intern, who happens to be now a world-class director, Patty Jenkins. She's the director for Wonder Woman and now Wonder Woman 2, which will come out one of these days once we get past COVID-19. But when I think about students like her, and actually a couple of students recently that we've had from Fullerton, I had one student actually just pre-COVID, she finished her internship with us just in January. And this student was just her first couple of weeks, she was so intimidated, so unsure. She second guessed and double, I would say not double check, but she was just her confidence. She just wanted to make sure that she got the right answer and got it all the time. And once she understood that the goal was to just feel it. When you're in production, when you're in marketing, you have to learn to feel your market. You have to learn to feel your customer. And so when I think back with that, when you see that light bulb go off after a few weeks and they start to realize it's not about getting a right or wrong answer. It's about being genuine and owning that genuineness. And I'll go back to that humanity, because when you're dealing with production and dealing with marketing, if you invest your commitment to bring out the humanity of whatever project you're doing, you're going to do a good job. Okay. It's not so much about, as we teach students, when they come in and they say, I want to edit. And we'll ask them, okay, do you want to edit or do you want to be an editor? Because there's a difference between the two. If you want to edit, okay, you can learn how to do software, but an editor has to be able to tell the story and be able to get people to connect with that story. So when they start understanding there is a marked difference between being invested emotionally and that their humanity is the key to figuring out that investment. One of my taglines that I always share with my marketing students, I always tell them, your key is to challenge yourself to know a little bit about a lot. Don't try to learn a lot about this because you're going to confine yourself. But in the world of marketing, you want to know a little bit about a lot so that you never find yourself in an environment and you're struggling or you're grappling for, oh, wait a minute, what do I say? What do I do? How do I engage? If you know just a little bit and open the door, the rest will come to you. I let the students know you've proven that you're smart, you're intelligent, you're getting ready to graduate from college. We got that. Now let's work on bringing that human part out. Okay.
Well, Micah, bringing the human part out, I like that. And I like that you do nurture that in people. You have not just the operational side, but there's a humanitarian ethos side. You do seek out the development of your interns, and you're also very careful with selection. And I noticed we had another question that came in the comments. This was from Quinn, who wants to know, what do you look for when you're choosing which interns to bring on? What do you specifically look, whether it's by the resume, whether it's by way of your interview with them? What are some things our students can start strategizing and employing right now so that they are visible and professionally attractive when they're pursuing opportunities like yours?
Good question, Quinn. One of probably the qualities that stands out the most, I'll give a good example when I'm looking at marketing resumes, and this is not just with interns, this is actually with professionals. But when interns apply for us, one of the things we ask for is writing samples. And typically students will always send in an academic, not I shouldn't say always, they will usually send in an academic paper, which, okay, I got it. Now, in our requirements, we do not specify because what we're trying to find out is how much insight do you have into what the industry is looking for. When you send in an academic paper, that lets us know you've got all the academic rules down. It gives us that framework. But what we want to know is, who is Quinn? If Quinn is sending in a writing piece that tells me who Quinn is, that's going to stand out, because you have to understand that in the world of marketing, when you get hired, your client, in most cases, 9 times out of 10, your client is going to bring something to you that you have no connection to, you have no investment. You've got to bring that to life. And a lot of times that life is not there. You got to figure out how to find it and make it sing and make it hum. Well, guess what? You got to be able to bring something of Quinn to the table to make that come to life. So when we're looking at resumes, whether it be from production, we're looking for 2 things: the ability to tell me something that I don't know about you that is unique, and also from a skill set, the ability to tell a story. Again, recognizing production and the marketing industry combined, based on what we do, everybody has a story. What that story is going to vary from person to person, but everybody has a story. And when you look at media, everything that is published in media is about telling a story. No matter if it's on digital media with TikTok, if it's no matter how brief it is, there's the cusp of a story that's there. So I always tell students, you want to make sure that whoever you're submitting that resume, cover letter, whatever else that they're requiring, is the writing piece, if it's links to production work that you've done, make sure you're putting something of you that's unique, that individual who's reviewing, that hiring manager or whoever, give them something that they did not have that could not be duplicated. That's going to go a long way. When I'm evaluating resumes, I get them a dime a dozen that have graduated from various schools, but I don't get that unique essence of their humanity unless they give it to me. When I get that, that's what's going to stand out.
That's some amazing advice. You've said it so eloquently, and I think it's something that students can really take to heart. And I know that you have so many opportunities that are constantly available actually on Titan Connection. So I wanted to touch on that really quick. Students out there who are looking for academic internships, Kids Sports News Network is always accepting our applications. Micah we were talking a little bit earlier before the live stream about what confidence that she has in Cal State Fullerton students. So she's always looking at resumes. So take that advice to heart, because this is someone who is reading tons and tons of those resumes coming in. So one other thing that we wanted to ask you about is it's been evident of all this expertise that you have all the effort and all the training that you put into your students. So what are a few things that students can expect to take away from an internship at Kids Sports News Network?
Okay. One of the things that probably first and foremost is for students to understand that when they are preparing themselves, especially their last year, getting ready to go into the job market, and I say especially now because it's probably very realistically going to be a different beginning for these students. Students that
Right.
are just recently graduating compared to students that graduated 2 years ago. Your job search is going to change, and your degree of competition is going to change. So I always advise students to realize, prepare to develop your brand when you graduate. Everybody is a brand. And again, it goes back to cultivating that skill set, that experience, that quality, whatever it is that makes you uniquely you. I go back to another student. We had a intern from Fullerton that just finished with us I think around just at the end of before pre-COVID, before spring. And this student was really struggling with us. I mean, student had a heart of gold and was talented in some way, but his vision was limited. And the reason why he was having that struggle was he hadn't found that connection to what made him uniquely him. And this particular student was passionate about coffee. Why? I never got that story, but it was something about coffee and coffee houses. And he was a production student. And so we recommended, especially considering, he was recently graduating and had kind of minimal work experience, but had some potential. What you need to do is take what you learned here and start cultivating content about coffee houses. It's a natural marriage. You're passionate about it. I mean, he could talk about coffee. He could go and visit coffee houses. He could break down the difference between coffee houses in West LA compared to coffee houses in Huntington Beach compared to coffee houses in San Gabriel. I mean, he became a mini Hugh Hauser in the world of coffee. So we started telling him on YouTube, you need to be producing that content now. Actually, go find some mom and pop coffee houses that need to start building their brand. He didn't realize he had a brand already cultivated that was right at his doorstep that made him uniquely him in the world of coffee. So that's one of the things students are going to learn. It's important to define who you are in the workplace because there's many that are going to be coming out that I would say that are like you, meaning recent college graduates, but there are none that are you. And you want to pull that out and identify that. The second thing they're going to learn is how to cultivate confidence and courage, meaning in your internship with KSN, as we tell you, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. This is the environment to make those mistakes. Be ready, be prepared to press the envelope. Be prepared to go to the edge. We call it being thrown in the deep end of the swimming pool. Most young people can remember and relate to when they were 3 or 4 years old. And typically it's a dad that's teaching them how to swim because moms are like, oh, no, don't put my baby in the deep end. And dad is like, look, this is how you're going to survive, all right? But dad he's not going to leave you without a life jacket. Jump in, roll your sleeves up, make your mistakes here because when you're in the workplace and you make that mistake, that might cost you your job. You want to make it here so you know how to recover. And when students are given license to make mistakes and you can survive it, you can recover, you assess what you've learned from it, their confidence and their courage just picks up by leaps and bounds. And then we talk about the importance of being fluid and being creative in your storytelling. If you are in marketing, if you are in production, that is a skill set you definitely want to harness because with marketing, if you're developing certain campaigns and in the world of marketing, you're going to learn the importance of being able to collaborate with your production team because marketing, as students learn with us, we're the front line, we're the vision. We're the brain, we see it, we feel it, we know what it's supposed to sound like, we know what it's supposed to smell like, but we don't know how to make it get there. Production has to breathe that life into it. So you got to be fluid, you got to be creative because different teams think differently, they're inspired differently, they're motivated differently. other than everybody reaching and working towards the same goal. And then one of the other skill sets or gains, I should say, that is probably most critical for students at that juncture in their life is they'll have an opportunity, or what we call the chance, to look in the mirror. It's been interesting, Andrew and Ashley, because we've had a number of students that have interned with us to discover. Actually, one in particular, we ended up hiring, and she stayed with us for 2 years to discover that production, she's really not cut out for. You know, it gave her a chance to really look in the mirror, and she had gone to school for it, had studied it, but she just didn't have the heart for it. And while she was with us, it gave her kind of a safe place to be while she figured out a backup plan. So that chance to look in the mirror from two perspectives: is this really a good fit for me? Okay. And if so, what's my niche? Or maybe I might want to consider something else. We've had students that have crossed over from production into marketing because they realize, well, wait a minute, I can still get my fix over here for marketing, but I'm not so savvy on camera. You know, the two industries work very close together. And then there's always tremendous value in learning firsthand what real world expectations are going to be in the workplace before you get in the workplace. You know, you don't want to be there and like, oh, wow, I didn't know this was going to be expected. Again, particularly in media production and broadcast, because I'm sure as many of the professors at Cal State Fullerton would back me up on, in media, in the 11th hour, what will go wrong or what can go wrong will. Okay. And guess what? The job still has to get done. So they realize and they learn that they're really being prepared such that when they actually get to the real world, they're not shell shocked, you know, in terms of what the expectations are. And then one thing that students don't oftentimes grasp, because of living in such a digital cubbyhole up until the point of getting ready to graduate, is the importance of relationship building. One of the things I have to say about Cal State Fullerton, though, I again sing your praises because I see the students they actively engage me on LinkedIn. And that's the only campus that we work with where I actually actively have students that are being proactive about, you know, engaging me on LinkedIn. So that lets me know that you guys as an institution are reinforcing the importance of developing your network, developing your relationships, developing that pipeline. We had some students that we took on a field trip with us because even though we're in the world of youth sports, because of what we do with youth sports, it has developed a lot of partnerships for us with local municipalities. And most of those municipalities we work with, they have production teams, they have production studios. So when we're out meeting with them, we bring the students on board with us to some of the meetings, to some of the sessions we're working with them, because when their internship is over with, if we're not hiring, well, guess what? One of our allies may be hiring, and they have had the chance to cultivate that relationship directly. And one of the things that I feel is very valuable for the students, because we work a lot with the chambers of commerce. And a lot of the students don't even know what a chamber of commerce is until they are introduced to it. And they wake up and realize, especially with the accounting students, I let them know, you guys, let's get you out here with these chambers, because these are all business owners. These are all different organizations. Guess what? They hire people. You got to get those relationships going. You got to build your network. And I think those will probably sum up the greatest gains that you can expect to get in your internship with us. And I like to just piggyback a little bit when I talk about the brand, the importance of building the brand. When I mentioned about Patty Jenkins, Patty, you know, goes a long way with us. And I have to reinforce the fact that when Patty, being our first intern with the network, came on board with us, she wasn't a Fullerton student, but she was with AFI, and we had a relationship, a partnership with them. But one of the things we saw with Patty helped model how we actually build our internship program. Because when Patty came on board with us, it was very clear that she was destined to do great things. And so when we learned and we experienced that with Patty, we understood a little bit more. This is the model that has to be built for students who may need a little bit more nurturing. Everybody's not going to be a go-getter, but everybody's got the capability of being a go-getter if they're taught the tools.
I like that. And we're coming towards the close of this segment, and I did want to feature. We have a feature of what that looks like when a student is able to put forth their vision, their ideas, their creativity, everything you mentioned. I did want to go back to Patty though, because I'm not sure if the audience caught that. We kind of played a segment, but Patty Jenkins, gang, this is the director of Wonder Woman, major motion picture a couple of years ago, and I love the DC Comics. But here's that quick little clip of her with KSNN. KSNN. That is just like awesome to me. I love seeing that graphic, and it goes to show that when you begin, who knows where your story, your journey will eventually end, and hers is just continuing. And all of that is because of the training, the mentorship, the guidance that you get as an intern with Kids Sports News Network. Micah Giles, her husband, also her son Rocky. It's a family affair there. And so, Micah, I want to conclude with a feature video that you brought to us that a student put together. And it was a result of their culmination of this internship. Can you give us a lead in on that?
Sure. I think we're talking about the Dodger Dreamfield, Kirk Gibson one.
This would be it was I think it was a football one, and it was a gentleman that put together the production side of that.
Okay, all right, yeah. A Beautiful Mind. Okay,
yeah, beautiful.
Yes, I think that's the one we're talking about. Yes, this one has a special place in our archives. This was a story. A young football player, young man, actually, who now he's with Washington State. He's actually one of the nation's top long snapper. But that particular project was very special for us in that there was a Fullerton intern that actually had enough courage to approach our executive producer and ask for permission to go after a lead. And this intern happened to play football in high school, and he was actually an assistant coach on one of the local high school football teams. So he was very well, I don't want to say necessarily connected, but he knew the landscape of the high school football market. So the fact that he had the courage to ask for permission, and the fact that he asked for it, the executive producer told him, if you think you can pull it off, go for it. Not only did he get the story, and again, at that time, this football athlete was actually slated, he was ranked as one of the 3 national top long snappers. I don't know how many of you are very knowledgeable about football in terms of what a long snapper does, but the long snapper's role on football is very, not just athletic, but it's also heavily connected to math and a little bit of science. It's an interesting position. But anyway, this particular intern went after the story, cultivated the relationship, the lead. He had to follow the protocol. We set him up, and it was his baby, and he actually co-produced the story. Now, this was Andrew, I don't know if I made this clear, this was a marketing student actually that actually took this on. So he was really stepping out of his comfort zone, meaning that he understood the fundamentals of marketing and building the buzz about it, but he had to kind of cross over to the production end, and he did such a good job to where the production team actually gave him the opportunity to do the story, meaning he actually did the interview as well. And this was the product that came to be.
His brain works, but he has a total X's and O's kind of brain. So he understands behind the scenes why things work.
Brown, Richmond, 96 double!
Simon's like having a coach on the field. He not only understands his position, he understands multiple positions. In the 4 years he's been with us on varsity, I think has a great mind for the game.
Coach Salter was such a positive influence in my life that I knew if I had boys, I wanted them to have the same experience that I did. It was a wonderful opportunity for me. I look back at it as some of the best times that I've ever had. And I knew if I had boys that I could count on that family, the Salter family, to bring the same culture and give my sons the same experience.
It all started as me just trying to get on the field. I saw my brother play 39 varsity games.
And that's just one example of the many videos that are done at KSNN by the students who are putting their thought, their mindset, their ability to story tell, and of course, all guided by Micah, her husband, and her son, and the entire team that's there. As you heard Micah kind of reference right before we cut to that clip, Micah, there were other clips we could have chosen from, and that was just kind of one of them that we decided to go with. But it's just neat to see you have a whole archive of these gems. Now, as we conclude, I want to go ahead and share with you guys Micah's and Kids Sports News Network's social media. So if you're interested in learning more or following Kids Sports News Network, go ahead and do so. You can find them at Facebook, the handle KSNN channel. You can also find them as well on YouTube, again, also at KSNN channel. Ashley, before we go, I want you to go ahead and share with the audience what we have remaining towards our schedule. And if you're watching with us and you have any remaining questions, in the meantime, go ahead and type them into the comment section. We'll give Micah a chance to answer some of those, and then we'll conclude. Ashley.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So for next week, month of July, we have another great partner that we're very excited to have on here for our community engagement, and it is Stand Up for Kids. And similar to Kids Sports News Network, Stand Up for Kids has a whole breadth of internship opportunities that they're able to offer, and even ones that they've been able to transfer from in-person internships to virtual internships. So if you're out there looking for great opportunities or just want to hear more about this great organization, make sure you join in with us again next week at 2 p.m. and we'd love to see you there.
Excellent. And Micah, kind of like a lightning round type of series of questions as we get more questions that pop on in. Really quick, resumes, 1 page or more?
I always leave that up to the students. Okay. If it's 1 page is fine, brief is great. But again, keep in mind, we want to know who you are. So if it's going to be more than 1 page, it's not so much about it being so much documented. It's about you telling a story about who you are. Okay. And if that story takes 3 pages and you pull me in, I'm all in. Okay. I always equate it to a good movie. If you watched a 2-hour movie and it seemed like it was an hour, then you've done your job. Okay.
How about cover pages? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes, definite cover pages. In our industry, again, especially in media, we typically, it's kind of like the elevator pitch. You want to give your employer or your prospective audience who's ever reading it a little bit of insight to what I'm going to follow up with. Okay. Typically with our production students, a good cover letter will give me a little bit of insight into what we're about to see. Because with our production interns, you're going to send in samples of work that you've sent in. Use your cover letter as a brief way to kind of give a interesting synopsis of what you're going to give us a visual introduction to. If it's marketing, again, it's really about touching your humanity. Don't typically send in just a structured cover letter, meaning with the accolades about what you've done, how many internships. Who are you, and what uniquely makes you you in the workplace? Because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see what party A is able to bring to me that I either don't have or I didn't know that I needed, and you're the one to give it to me.
Excellent. And those are 2 key questions. One other question, and this is more of a personal preference in terms of the way you review applications. Is it best to send the email resumes early in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, or it doesn't matter?
For me personally, in the evening, because typically in the morning, again, based on my schedule and being here on the West Coast in the media, a lot of us in the industry, we function on East Coast time. So meaning that, we're working with people that are on the East Coast. And that means 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, we're getting started. And for me personally, that's the time when I deal with a lot of administrative things, because I like to be able to give you my full undivided attention. And later in the day, when the day has gotten going, other things are kicking in. I'm putting out fires. So later in the day, so that in the morning it's fresh, it's there, and I'm able to go to it and respond, and and get back to you.
Fantastic. And our audience wants to get one more question in. Quinn, once again, is asking, what's your number one? This might be a tough one. Let's see if we can do this kind of concisely. What is your number one piece of advice for interns?
Let's see. That's a good one, Quinn.
You've got a lot of advice.
My number, I got to pick one. I would say, again, probably going back to what I said before, arm yourself, and this doesn't matter what industry you're in, arm yourself to know a little bit about a lot of things, okay? It doesn't matter if you want to go into production, if you want to go into marketing, if you're going into some administrative career, you want to be versatile, and communication is key. Being able to communicate in a world where you can bring people to you. Oftentimes, our model is that the technical things, especially in the world of technology, you can learn those, you can be taught. But there's some things people can't be taught. You want to be able to exhibit the ability to have that natural, again, I'll say humanity, that human connection, that desire to want to know, that desire to connect. The technical things we can teach you, but we can't teach you how to be a good human being. So I would say, arm yourself to know a little bit about a lot of things, especially at your stage, being a recent college graduate. You're going to be in different circles, different environments. You want to be able to communicate with a variety of people in an intelligible way so that people are drawn into you. And the only way you can do that is to know a little bit about what it is that they're communicating with you on. So I would say that's probably my most important.
Yeah, thank you for reinforcing that. One of the things we're finding in the world of research, and I teach organizational behavior, what we emphasize is this need for communication. And it's not as simple as we often think. It's not just talking, but as Micah mentioned, it's understanding your audience, knowing how to articulate your message to that audience, and then being able to listening well to know what they even want to say, what they want to hear. Micah, I just want to thank you on behalf of the Center for Leadership and Community Engagement and Cal State Fullerton, all of our students and our audience here right now, and those that will be watching. You gave us such a wealth of information based on your expertise. And I can guarantee you, gang, if you are watching right now and you're interested in anything that Micah has mentioned to you, apply. It's there at Time Connection under Kids Sports News Network. They are accepting applications for the fall. You won't regret it. You'll have a very strong and direct experience. Micah will tell you exactly what you need to hear. She's not going to hold back, but she does so because she cares about your development. And so we value partners that do just that. Micah, thank you again. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you go over to our Facebook page, you follow us, you like us, I like our page. What we're going to do after next week is we're actually going to put a pause button on these sessions, community conversations. We got some restructuring going on, reorganization going on at the Center for Leadership and Communication. But moving forward, stay with our social media. You're going to see posts and information on new virtual internships, new processes that you need to know. And if you're online, connected to our social media sites, you're going to be the first to know and not wondering what's going on. So I do recommend you do that. In the meantime, thank you so much. Take care, and we hope you have a great week. See you soon.
Bye-bye.